Welcome back to your channel name. Today, we're diving into a chilling crime story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. From shocking twists to unexpected revelations, this case is a true test of human resilience. Join us as we unravel the details of this intense story and explore the mysteries that lie beneath. Don't forget to hit subscribe and tap the bell icon so you never miss a thrilling episode. Let's get started.
My daughter took off this way, and they put the gun right here in her face, right up her nose, and said, "Don't make us use this."
This footage, recorded by the FBI on an undisclosed date around 2001, shows agents monitoring Michelle Renee, a 35-year-old single mother, inside her home. She recounts a horrifying event from a few weeks prior, during which she and her 7-year-old daughter, Breea, were held hostage by a group of armed men.
I heard my daughter say, "Are you going to kill my mommy? And are you going to kill me?" And they said, "No, not if your mommy does everything that we tell her to do." And they sat me right here and said, "Now we're going to take your daughter." And then I had to put her in there and they said, "We need to put the dynamite on you now."
Now, held at gunpoint, Michelle Renee was helpless as she watched Breea being fitted with explosives right before her eyes.
You could tell she was just in absolute shock and terror and shaking.
Trapped in a life-or-death situation, her attackers gave her just one chance to save her kidnapped daughter.
They said, "You're going to rob the bank for us, or we will kill you, and your daughter will be first." Be brave, Mommy. That was the last thing she said.
In the picturesque city of Vista, California, Michelle Renee and her daughter Breea enjoy a comfortable life in their secluded home.
Lived in my dream house, pretty much. It was up on top of a hill. It was overlooking the ocean.
But on the night of November 20th, 2000, something unusual occurred with Breea. She woke her mother in a state of panic.
She said, "Mom, I saw somebody's eyes looking through my bedroom window. I saw people outside." She was scared out of her mind. I looked out there. I didn't see anything. I didn't see anybody, so I just brushed it off.
By morning, Michelle had convinced herself that Breea, who was only 7 years old, must have been dreaming.
I felt very, very safe. I felt like we were far away from everything.
Unbeknownst to her, Breea was correct. That night, not only had a man been outside their window, but Christopher Butler had been stalking Michelle and her daughter for nearly a year with the assistance of his accomplices, Robert Ortiz, Michael Huggins, and Lisa Ramirez. Fearing Michelle might become suspicious after briefly spotting him by the window, Butler decided to implement his plan the next day. On November 21st, around 8 p.m., they violently broke into the house by smashing the back door.
And we just heard this huge sound, just the biggest noise from behind us. And I turned to look and just saw 3 people just rushing in, running in the door. And they had their guns and they were all in black.
Moving through the house with precision, Butler and his accomplices swiftly intercepted Michelle and Breea. As they tried to escape, another man waiting around the corner beyond the living room apprehended them amidst the chaos. Overwhelmed with panic, Michelle was horrified at the thought of her daughter being in danger.
I was screaming and crying. I thought for sure we were going to be raped, probably murdered. I didn't know.
Standing close to Michelle, Butler began issuing commands to the others. Huggins, the largest of the group, dropped Breea to the ground and proceeded toward the front door, while Ortiz took his place beside her. Meanwhile, Butler was on his radio, relaying instructions to individuals outside the house.
They were in constant contact with 6 people outside of the house on walkie-talkies, saying money 1 to money 2, money 2 to money 3.
And I hear duct tape unraveling, that sound of duct tape that I'll never forget.
Before disclosing his true intentions, Butler informs Michelle that Breea's disturbing dream from the previous night was more than just a nightmare.
They said that they had followed me to my daughter's school and that they had been watching me in my house at my job.
Stunned by the revelation, Michelle begged Butler to let her see Breea. While she felt a momentary relief when he stepped aside and began lifting her daughter, her heart broke when she saw Breea's condition.
They let me turn around and see my daughter laying face down on the floor. right here by the door with her hands tied and her feet tied. Right there on the ground.
Her mother's tears had deeply affected her. "Were you trying to plead with the men?" she asked. Even though she was only 7 years old, the child was as worried about her own safety as she was about her mother's distress.
I heard my daughter say, "Are you gonna kill my mommy? And are you gonna kill me?" And they said, "No, not if your mommy does everything that we tell her to do."
They said, "You're going to rob the bank for us, or we will kill you, and your daughter will be first."
Late in the evening, headlights appeared in the driveway. Michelle recognized the car as belonging to her friend Kimber Oliver, who was living with her and Breea at the time. Butler's claim that he knew everything about Michelle's life proved true when he received a warning on his CB radio that Kimber was approaching. That's why he had stationed Huggins by the main entrance earlier. As Kimber arrived, Huggins swiftly knocked her down and restrained her with duct tape. The burglars then spent several hours making themselves at home, eating Michelle's food and ransacking the house. Finally, Butler instructed that Michelle be prepared for their next move, ensuring that his request was as distressing as possible.
They were really vulgar. They were really sexually explicit in their language. He says, "Take a shower," and my daughter doesn't want to leave me.
Under duress, Michelle and Breea were compelled to take a shower and complied with the order.
Just looking at my girl and wiping her face, and he tapped the gun on the door and said, "Time to go."
After leaving the shower, Michelle saw Huggins enter the bathroom carrying a large duffel bag. He dropped the bag on the floor and then exited with Breea. Butler began to unpack the bag, revealing firearms, bladed weapons, and ammunition. Eventually, he pulled out a red object wrapped in electrical tape and colorful wires. It was clear that this was no mistake. In the center of the device were 2 unmistakable sticks of dynamite.
The ringleader said, "We're going to put these on your body, we're going to put these on your daughter's body," and showed us a detonation device and said, "If you do not do every single thing we tell you to do, you will disintegrate."
Butler forced Michelle to follow him back into the living room and then pushed her to the ground beside Breea. He commanded her to lift her shirt and turn her back to him.
Actually put them on me first.
Really, really tight into my ribs to where you couldn't hardly breathe. It was really painful.
Then they had my daughter lean over the bathroom toilet and duct taped them to her as well.
Right then, the ringleader took my arm and said, "You have 10 minutes to say everything you need to say to your daughter."
Michelle gently placed the frightened child on the couch and did her best to comfort her. With the possibility of never meeting again, she wanted to ensure her young daughter felt the depth of her love.
And you could tell she was just in absolute shock and terror and shaking. We were on the couch together, and I was just telling her that she was perfect for me, that she was exactly everything I'd ever hoped for when I planned to be a mom.
As Breea and Michelle shared a heartfelt embrace, Butler intervened, pulling them apart. Meanwhile, the others strapped additional dynamite onto Kimbrough's chest and then separated them. Breea was shoved into a closet, while Kimbrough was confined to the bathroom.
I just couldn't imagine her in the closet, you know what I mean? Just sitting there sort of waiting to explode. The only way I got through that moment is knowing that I had to save her life and get back to her.
As the sun began to rise, Butler shoved Michelle outside and ordered her to get into her Jeep. He stood by her side, gun pointed at her, and started directing her where to go as she approached the Bank of America branch on Santa Fe Avenue. Michelle felt a chill as goosebumps covered her skin. This wasn't just any bank, it was her bank, the place where she worked. In a flash, panic set in. Butler warned her that after the bank opened, he would wait just 5 minutes before detonating the bomb without hesitation. Michelle got out and hurried to the entrance. Inside, her colleague Loretta Myers greeted her, but it was clear from the start that something was wrong.
She came into the branch and she was very stoic, just off center. It just wasn't like her. She's a vivacious, bubbly, outgoing kind of a person.
As she waited for the bank to open, Michelle sat at her desk, trying to appear busy before the heist began. While glancing at a photo of Breea she had placed in the corner of her desk, Michelle noticed something unusual, a business card from a strange customer she had received the day before. The card bore the name Christopher Butler. In an instant, everything fell into place. Michelle realized with a jolt that she had seen her assailant before. Not only was he a customer at the bank, but she had also seen him at her desk the previous day.
He sat at my desk for a really long time asking sort of the same questions over and over. And then a woman walked in and said, "Chris, we need to get going." And her voice on the walkie-talkie, I remember that voice sounding very familiar. And I was just like, oh my gosh, it's her.
Michelle was determined that if she and Breea could make it through this ordeal, she would bring Butler and Ramirez to justice. However, with the bank about to open, she had to push her concerns about the staff to the back of her mind and stay focused on the task at hand.
I knew what I had to do, and that's all I could think about. I have to rob the bank.
At precisely 9, the vault was filled and the bank doors opened. Simultaneously, Michelle's internal countdown began, marking the start of the crucial 5 minutes.
That's the cue. Every step I took with that dynamite was like a tick, every second. I grabbed my briefcase, I went to the vault.
The bank's policy mandated that 2 people were always required to operate the vault. So, Michelle forcefully took control of the bank teller and pulled her inside with her. However, Loretta Myers wasn't fooled. She was aware that they weren't allowed to bring anything into the vault.
Never have I ever seen anybody take anything other than a pen and keys into the vault. Never.
With the clock ticking, Michelle couldn't afford to address her colleague's suspicions. She shut the vault door behind her, gripped the bank teller's shoulders, looked her squarely in the eyes, and plainly informed her about the heist.
She started panicking and going, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." She couldn't speak. And I lifted up my shirt and I said, "Look what's on my back. I'm gonna blow up if I'm not out of here in 5 minutes. You need to help me."
Together, Michelle and the bank teller retrieved a duffel bag from the briefcase and began stuffing it with cash. In the allotted time, they managed to collect $360,000 before exiting the vault. Michelle then gave her additional instructions.
And I said, "Get ready to shut the bank down."
Do not call the police. If you call the police, we're dead.
Under the watchful eyes of skeptical employees, Michelle emerged from the bank with a duffel bag and made her way back to her Jeep, where Butler was waiting. He drove past the bank to a dead end and dropped her off.
He let me out of the Jeep. I was to walk back to where my Jeep would be waiting, and then I was to go straight home.
As Michelle sped home with the pedal to the metal, a harrowing thought gripped her mind. Why would Butler allow any of them to survive? After all, he had no reason to keep any of them alive.
That's all. Is this going to be the step that's going to end my daughter's life? Is this going to be the second that I'm going to blow up?
To return home, Michelle had to drive past the bank once more. The sight of police cars arriving at the branch sent a chill down her spine as she sped through the remaining miles to reach her daughter. Another troubling scene awaited her in the driveway when she arrived home.
My roommate's car was gone. They had barricaded the front door, and I just had to struggle my way in, and my adrenaline was so high. I had just got done forcing my way in the door.
And I was just screaming, and hello, hello. It was eerily silent.
You just die inside. You just die inside.
Overwhelmed by the weight of the silence, Michelle felt on the verge of collapsing when suddenly she heard a sound from the bedroom, the faint cheers of Brian and Kimbra.
I was so excited. I was like, someone's coming back. It's my mom. I think it's my mom. And I was like, okay, it's over.
Oh my gosh. She was alive. I did it. We did it.
I gave her a hug and I was really, really happy.
I just wanted to grab her and never, never, ever let go of her. I just wanted to hold her.
But then I could still see the panic on her face.
Despite the surge of relief and joy, Michelle noticed that Brian, though still wrapped in duct tape, no longer had explosives attached to her. When she turned to check on Kimbra, she saw that Kimbra, too, was free of her explosives.
And I told them, the dynamite's still on me. You guys need to go for help. I'll stay here. I don't know if this thing's gonna detonate. I don't know what's gonna happen. And my daughter was going, no, Mommy, no, I'm not leaving you. My roommate said, Michelle, I know I can do this. Let me just cut it off of you. And she ran and got scissors and cut it off of me.
In an instant, the three abandoned the bomb and dashed to the nearest neighbor's house.
Sheriff's Member, can I help you?
Yes, some neighbors of ours were held hostage. I need somebody out here right away.
When the police arrived, their bomb squad swiftly determined that the 3 explosive devices at the scene were fake. Michelle and Breea were then taken to the station for questioning. Michelle presented Butler's business card and explained the entire story. After a week passed with no progress from the police, Michelle decided to take action herself and reached out to America's Most Wanted.
The deputy DA advised her not to do it because it was a pending case.
Yeah, they didn't want me to do it.
This proved to be one of the key reasons the entire group was ultimately arrested. Butler and Ramirez were apprehended during a routine traffic stop when police discovered weapons and official Bank of America money straps in their car. Huggins and Ortiz, who had gone on the run, were tracked down in California and Wisconsin in the following days, thanks to tips from America's Most Wanted.
If you know where Ortiz is hiding, please call our hotline right now.
But for Michelle, this wasn't the end. In fact, it marked the beginning of a new challenge. As the sole person present at both the kidnapping and the heist, she was chosen as the key witness for the upcoming trial of Butler and Ramirez. However, Michelle's anger and contentious attitude in court ultimately caused her more trouble than benefit.
Angry witnesses don't come across as credible.
I was treated like I was the criminal.
During the trial, Butler made an infuriatingly false statement, while Ramirez's defense attorney tried to shift the blame onto Michelle.
My strategy was to beat the hell out of the victim.
The defense attorneys were saying that I was having an affair with one of the criminals, that I strapped my own child with dynamite, that I was the mastermind behind the crime.
After 5 days of deliberation, the jury delivered a verdict that cut through the defense's arguments.
Chris Butler was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences, plus 64 years.
Unfortunately, Ramirez received no sentence for the kidnapping and heist, as she had merely acted as a lookout. The jury concluded that she had not committed a punishable offense, despite her confession of masterminding the operation. Her videotaped confession from the initial interrogation was ruled inadmissible in court.
Honestly, I whose idea that was about 8 months ago. Jokingly, mine.
There was some female boys that came over all the time.
That was it.
Mind-boggling. The fact that it was her idea to do this to a mother and a child.
Huggins and Ortiz were not as fortunate in the expedited trial. Both were convicted of kidnapping and robbery and sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms. Reflecting on the now 23-year-old event remains painful for Michelle and Breea, but Thomas Manning's assessment of her as a hero is well-deserved.
The strength and courage that she showed that night saved her life, saved Brea's life. This could have had a different ending.
Once everything settled, Michelle and Breea left Vista and relocated to San Diego. Michelle was determined to move on with her life, but overcoming their past proved to be more challenging than anticipated. For years, both she and her daughter, especially Breea, who was only 7 at the time, sought professional help to process their traumas.
There's aspects of that night that are going to be with me for the rest of my life.
Breea eventually recovered and thrived through high school, but disaster struck again during her senior year. On December 8, 2011, she suddenly collapsed and was paralyzed. At the hospital, Michelle discovered that her daughter had multiple sclerosis, a rare neurological disease. The prognosis was grim, predicting that Breea would never see, talk, or walk again. Refusing to give up, Michelle paused her own pursuits to become a full-time caregiver. With her mother's unwavering support, Breea's condition gradually improved. She managed to graduate high school and college from her hospital bed. After 9 years of relentless struggle, Breea made a full recovery.
After she could talk again, she turned to me and said, "Kidnapping was a piece of cake compared to this."
Breea and Michelle decided to confront life together with determination. They now run Verb Media, a successful production company established by Michelle in 2009. Additionally, Michelle authored 2 books, Held Hostage, a retelling of the November 21st events from her perspective, which was adapted into a film of the same name, and 9 Days, a memoir exploring the power of healing and forgiveness.
It was 2 choices. Call them monsters and stay angry and blame everything in my life on them, or I can take this other road. The best thing I could do for Breea is to be an example.
It's not always the end-all be-all when something bad happens to you. You can come out of it stronger.
And that wraps up today's deep dive into this intense crime story. From the chilling events to the surprising twists, we've uncovered the layers of a case that tests the limits of human resilience. Michelle and Brea's journey from adversity to triumph is a powerful reminder of the strength found in the darkest moments. Their story not only captivates, but also inspires. If you enjoyed this gripping tale, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss out on our latest true crime stories. Dive into other intriguing cases and uncover the secrets behind the headlines. We want to hear from you. Share your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. What part of the story did you find most compelling? Don't forget to follow us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and more. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.